Hello everyone. In this video, I will walk you through some topics for the Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam, and these are the search topics. So this video is similar to Certified Kubernetes Application Developer exam and some of the search topics which I covered in that video. And this will be specific to Administrator exam, and the topics would be slightly different. So let's get started. So, for example, if there is a question on ingress, what is the strategy to actually find or come to the relevant section where you can copy paste the relevant YAML bits? So, I'll just click this link and I will go to the ingress section. But ingress is very easy, so you can just do a global search as well. So, if I do a global search, I will come to the first link which I have put in that slide, and then, as I mentioned, start with kind equal to ingress. So, you can just start like Command F and just pay attention to right side, and if I just search for kind, and you will see there are 18 matches, there are 18 snippet of code which will be relevant to you, but you can just like continue and give like ingress, and then you will come to the first snippet of code and just keep clicking next. So if you go to click next, and as I mentioned in the here, ignore ingress class, so you can ignore those sections. And so you will see all the snippet of code in one quick. So the parts which may be relevant to you, you can just like take a look first, and then probably you can go back and forth. For example, there is a minimal ingress thing, so you can just take a look. For example, if the question is asking you for a simple rule, you can probably take this. If not, for example, you can move ahead. Like for example, if there is something like two ingress wildcard host, and for example, this one is having for two services. So something like two services, like there's a service 1 and service 2, and there are different suffixes which you can. So you can just copy paste the relevant bits depending on the question being asked. And so I have given the example of like minimal ingress and first service and second service for your reference. So this is like a minimal ingress, and as I mentioned that probably you may have to add some annotations as well. So if you can search for annotations, you can find that relevant bits as well. So I just copy this and search here. So annotations, so something like this, for example, so they are like in the minimal ingress, there's annotations how it's being used also. So moving on, second is logging architecture. So this is pretty straightforward. So logging architecture, if I just search for kind equal, so there are 5 matches. So probably like for example, the one which I have specified is how they are using multi container, and how they are sharing the volume. So this example is a good this snippet of code is a good example of how they are using 3 containers and a shared volume. So you can take a look, and that's what I have specified in the illustration. Next is configure a pod to use a persistent volume for storage. So herein, if I just click this link, and how to come to this link is you can just search globally persistent volumes. Persistent volume. So there are 2 links which I have provided. Both are pointing to the same thing actually. So I'll go back, and if you just search for kind, so you will see all the example like how they have used like a pod and container and all those things. So here I have specified like how a pod is using a persistent volume claim, and how that persistent volume claim is specified over here, you can see, and the persistent volume. So if you search something similar, you will come to the same thing. So how they have specified, for example, So first is persistent volume claim, and third one is the pod. So this is how the object needs to be created. Okay, moving on. This one and last one is similar. Like there is something like, for example, persistent volumes. If I search for example, kind, and this is pod. If I search again, and so there is an example of how to use for storage. So if you just search for, just pay attention, kind equal to st, you will see only one example being given. And if there is something in the question about storage class, you can copy paste the relevant bits. And how after the storage class, how it's being used, right? So first we create actually a storage class, then we create persistent volume, because this is dependent on the storage class. So you will see here, for example, here storage class. So this is referring to this one. This is referring to this one, and same thing. Then we have persistent volume claim here. So persistent volume claim is also like referring to storage class. And finally, how to use that in a pod. So this is dependent on claim. So this is dependent on the claim. So they are using my claim, persistent volume claim. So these four objects are linked together. So it's better you go through this documentation and familiarize yourself. Okay, moving on. Next is network policies. This is a bit important. So if you just click that link, you will come to the documentation, and as I mentioned, just I can search for kind, and in this case I can just search for network policy. So they have given 7 examples, so 7 matches. There are 7 examples which I have provided, so you can go through all of it before the exam. But I think this one, the first one, right? The first one is the most relevant one, because it covers all the topics. So if I just search for next, there are other policies which are allow, deny all, default, deny egress, allow all egress. So these are shorter ones, and there is only one which is about the range of ports. So you can take a look to that as well. But I have copy pasted the relevant bits, so you can just, like I will quickly explain. So network policy, the first is pod selector, which says which pods this policy applies to, which is like an actor or the subject object, right? So actor does something. So this is like to which pods which has this label it will apply to, and then the policy types which all it covers. So ingress and egress, incoming and outgoing. So if there are any ingress rules, so it will be like those ingress rules will be applied, and if there are any egress rules, those will be applied. So you may have to just copy paste and remove or modify or add relevant bits. And there are other 5 which are like very short ones. So if any of them are there in the documentation, you can just quickly copy paste that. Next topic is upgrading Kubernetes clusters. So herein I don't have any specific search words, because this is like you have to be very comfortable with like the steps involved in upgrading a cluster. And they have given 2 examples. For example, there are 2 parts actually. There is master node and there is worker node. So first master node, how to upgrade your first master node, and then if you just scroll down a bit, they'll be like how to upgrade your worker node. So just become familiar with what are the steps looks like, and at least become familiar with the documentation and which lines of code to copy paste and modify accordingly. So I have given like snippet of code, but anyway, this is more you have to like go through the documentation and copy paste. The searching may not help much, because the search terms are varies a lot in this case. Next topic is etcd backup and restore. So if you just click that link, you will come to backing up an etcd cluster, and if you want to reach, for example, you can just do etcd backup. This is a global search actually. So if I just search like this and etcd backup, the first link which I have provided in the documentation, this is the same link, and you will come to this page, and if you just search for backing up, okay, and this is the one which talks about how to back up a etcd cluster, and the commands are there, and how to take a snapshot, so restoring, sorry, and how to restore. So, and you can search for backing up, and then you can probably search for snapshot save. For example, snapshot save is here, right? Snapshot save. So this is, and you can just do something like etcd ctl -h, and it just will give you all the options like endpoint -csert. You can just copy paste, and then you have to provide the CA file, search CA file. So I have a separate video on how to take the etcd backup and how to restore, so you can watch that video. And restoring is similar, and you may have to if you want to just come to this like command, you can just search for snapshot restore. Next, configure liveness and readiness probe. This one I have already talked about in my other video for the CKD exam, Search Like a Pro. But this again, you have to search for kind and some, if there are any like HTTP endpoint. So HTTP endpoint, you can just search in the documentation healthy, but the exam may give you some other endpoint. You just have to replace that endpoint with this endpoint, and you have to take the liveness and readiness probe. And herein they have given an example. It's better that you try ahead of the exam, go through the documentation, probably copy paste this code and run some Kubernetes cluster, so that you become familiar with how the liveness, readiness, and startup probes are implemented. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye.